In the ancient and turbulent era of China's warring states, the kingdom of Qin stood on the edge of transformation. Within its opulent palaces layered in gold and guarded by stone lions, a storm of lust, betrayal, and deadly ambition quietly brewed. Long before the Great Wall rose or the title of First Emperor was carved into history, a young king named Ying Zheng sat on the precarious throne of Qin. His father, King Zhuangxiang, had passed, leaving behind a 13-year-old heir and a cunning, beautiful Queen Dowager, Lady Zhao, also called Queen Dowager. Lady Zhao was no ordinary widow. Before her marriage into royalty, she had been the mistress of Lao Ai Rebellion, the most powerful politician and merchant in the Qin kingdom. Their past affair had not ended with her royal wedding. When King Zhuangxiang died, Lao Ai Rebellion rekindled his relationship with Lady Zhao in secret. The affair posed a threat to his political legacy. If Ying Zheng discovered their liaison, it could destroy Lao Ai Rebellion's empire of influence. So, the chancellor conceived a twisted plan. Unable to risk being found in Lady Zhao's chambers, Lao Ai Rebellion found a substitute, someone less politically risky but physically captivating. Enter Lao Ai, a drifter with no title or status, but who had one unique reputation. Whispers about his extraordinarily large genitals circulated through the kingdom's underworld. Lao Ai Rebellion, ever the strategist, saw this as an opportunity. He orchestrated parties where Lao Ai was encouraged to flaunt his physical assets. Rumors reached Lady Zhao, who, bored and isolated in the palace, grew curious. Fascination turned to obsession. According to the records of the grand historian, Lao Ai's sexual prowess won Lady Zhao's heart. Their affair began in secrecy. Lao Ai, disguised as a eunuch with his eyebrows shaved, infiltrated the inner palace as a servant. Every night, he visited Lady Zhao's bedchamber. Their passion bore fruit. Twice. To hide the pregnancies, Lady Zhao claimed divine visions had called her into seclusion at Yangcheng. There, she and Lao Ai raised their illegitimate sons in decadent secrecy. The queen's favor transformed Lao Ai's life. The drifter became Lord Changxi, with land, wealth, and a personal army. His power grew dangerously fast. He formed alliances with court officials and bribed soldiers, establishing his own faction within the Qin court. Now, three forces vied for dominance: the young king's loyalists, Lao Ai Rebellion's chancellor faction, and Lao Ai's secret cabal backed by the Queen Dowager. Behind the silk curtains of power, Lao Ai's ambitions swelled. With Lady Zhao's support, he dreamed of dethroning Ying Zheng and placing his own son, conceived through forbidden love, on the throne. He flaunted his influence openly, boasting at banquets and threatening nobles. But he made a fatal miscalculation. He underestimated the young king's mind. At the age of 21, in 238 BCE, Ying Zheng traveled to Yangcheng to perform a sacred ancestral worship ceremony. It was more than tradition. It was his public declaration as the rightful ruler. Lao Ai, drunk with wine and arrogance, attended the royal feast and assaulted a noble named Yan Ji, claiming, "I am the queen's consort." Word reached Ying Zheng. Fury boiled beneath the king's composed exterior. He summoned Yan Ji and confirmed the scandal: Lao Ai's deception, his affair with Lady Zhao, and the existence of their hidden sons. Ying Zheng's silence became deadly. He knew the time to strike had come. But Lao Ai's spies learned of the king's intentions and warned him. In panic, Lao Ai rushed to Lady Zhao. Together, they hatched a desperate rebellion. They forged a royal decree, claiming an attack threatened the palace. Thousands of soldiers, farmers, and townspeople rallied to the queen's
call. But instead of protecting the palace, they were now pawns in Lao Ai's coup.
The gates of Yangcheng shook as Lao Ai's loyalists surged forward. The rebellion began with chaos, as confused troops and peasants poured into the palace, believing they were defending their rulers. The plan was to assassinate Ying Zheng and crown Lady Zhao's secret son. It was treason masked as loyalty. But Ying Zheng was no ordinary boy king. Trained in warfare, strategy, and ancient texts, he was ready. His response was swift and surgical. He summoned the Royal Guard, the elite Shenyang troops and the loyal Shuaman army, warriors raised under his command, sworn to his bloodline. The clash erupted in the streets of Yangcheng. Swords clanged, hooves pounded, the air split with screams. Lao Ai's rebels, driven by bribes and blind ambition, met the disciplined steel of the king's soldiers. From atop the city wall, Ying Zheng's voice rang out. Lao Ai is a traitor. He plots with the Queen Dowager to steal the throne. Kill the traitors. Protect Qin. The declaration sent shockwaves. Many rebels, realizing the truth, dropped their weapons. Others switched sides. The tide turned rapidly. Ying Zheng issued a chilling decree. Capture Lao Ai alive, and the reward would be 1 million coins. Kill a rebel, and earn 50,000. A fever swept the city. Citizens, merchants, palace workers, all took up arms. Clubs, knives, farming tools, they hunted Lao Ai's men like wild beasts. In hours, the rebellion crumbled. Lao Ai, once poised to be kingmaker, fled through the western gates, hoping to vanish into the mountains. But Ying Zheng had anticipated this. General Shun's cavalry waited. Encircling Lao Ai's retreat, they captured him alive. Shackled in chains, he was dragged back to the capital. A defeated traitor paraded through streets he once dreamed of ruling. But Ying Zheng's vengeance had only begun. Over 20 high-ranking officials connected to Lao Ai were executed. Their families exiled, stripped of rank, or killed. Over 4,000 households associated with the traitor were relocated to the empire's remotest southern regions. Then came Ying Zheng's most devastating judgment. Lady Zhao's betrayal, though maternal, was unforgivable. The Queen Dowager's 2 illegitimate sons, just infants, were executed by bludgeoning. Their crime? Being born of treason. Lady Zhao herself was not spared. Stripped of her title, she was imprisoned in the palace at Yangcheng. Once the most powerful woman in Qin, she now lived in shadows, isolated and disgraced. Her name, once whispered in admiration, now hung heavy with scandal. Qin had survived. The throne remained intact, but the people were shaken. Among the nobility, whispers spread like wildfire. Executing rebels was one thing, but killing babies, imprisoning one's own mother, had the king crossed a line into tyranny? One voice refused to remain silent. Mao Xiao, a scholar known for his wisdom and virtue, heard of the purge. He had traveled across the empire, witnessing suffering under corrupt warlords. He believed a king must wield power, but also show restraint. When news of the Queen Dowager's imprisonment and her children's deaths reached him, Mao Xiao took action. He journeyed to the capital, and in the cold winter, sat outside the palace gates. Wailing openly, he mourned the deaths. His cry pierced the city. The heavens are inverted. The king murders his own blood. The court is in chaos. How can he rule a nation whose people fear him more than they respect him? Guards moved to arrest him. But Mao Xiao stood his ground, eyes blazing with conviction. Word of this defiance reached Ying Zheng. Furious, he ordered Mao Xiao brought before him, intending to have him boiled alive, a punishment reserved for traitors. But Mao Xiao did not tremble. Standing before the king, he declared, "My life is nothing, but my words are true. You may kill me, but the truth cannot be boiled away." A ruler who loses the people's hearts loses the empire. Ying Zheng froze. This was no coward, no liar. Mao Xiao's defiance was pure. His courage undeniable. And in that moment, the young king saw the truth. Conquest brought territory, but respect kept power. Without the people's faith, his rule would always teeter. So he chose mercy. He spared Mao Xiao. Not only that, he appointed him as Grand Tutor, an advisor in the royal court. It was a masterstroke. Mercy, when shown at the right time, was a weapon stronger than steel. Ying Zheng's rise was forged in blood, betrayal, and brutal choices. But it was in these very moments, the downfall of Lao Ai, the disgrace of Lady Zhao, the challenge from Mao Xiao, that he began to transform. He was no longer just a king. He was becoming an emperor. The rebellion had exposed the fragile veins of Qin's inner palace. By purging traitors and rewarding loyalty, Ying Zheng established absolute control. His reputation as a ruthless but brilliant leader solidified. Yet the decision to spare Mao Xiao showed wisdom beyond fear. Lady Zhao lived the rest of her days in seclusion. Her name wiped from records, her fate a warning to future consorts. Lao Ai became a ghost, a cautionary tale told to young courtiers about the dangers of ambition and seduction. The court grew quiet. Nobles dared not plot. Ministers dared not lie. The people watched their king with awe and fear. Ying Zheng, still in his 20s, had proven what few rulers ever could. That he would sacrifice love, family, and sentiment for the sake of the state. The lesson was seared into the empire's soul. Loyalty came first. Blood came second. And weakness had no place in the throne room of Qin. From this fire, Ying Zheng marched onward. Uniting the warring states. Standardizing law, weights, writing. Commissioning the Great Wall. And finally declaring himself Shi Huangdi, the first emperor of China. But before the title, before the wall, before the empire, there was the rebellion in the palace. And the young king who survived it all. You've just witnessed one of the darkest punishments in history. But many more still lurk in the shadows. So if you dare, subscribe to Torture Vault, where every scream from the past still echoes.